things just don't ever change. Like death, taxes, Florida State losing in Omaha. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. I don't like a lot of teams in the SEC, but I think two things can be true at once. I can love my conference or the team that I cheer for in the conference. And you know what? I could legitimately hate the conference and hate the other team. Like, I can hate everybody and love the conference. Now, the thing becomes if the SEC just continues to get teams into the final two and another SEC champion in Omaha, baseball is the closest thing to college football that we have. It's insane. Now, as I'm watching right now, Texas A&M has the bases loaded in the top of the first versus Florida, who won a game today against Kentucky. So nevertheless, we are monitoring the situation with the Florida Gators and the Texas A&M Aggies. Not all of the baseball that we'll talk tonight, because Koki Riley joins us from The Advocate. We'll break down the portal hauls that Jay Johnson has gotten. Also, we will discuss some football stuff. Last night I talked about the DBs. Got a lot of pushback on it. I understand it. I'm going to give you a position group, though, tonight defensively that I do think it might be interestingly good. And I think that they will be a lot better. So I gave you something bad. I'm going to give you something good to start the show off with tonight. It might, as the state will have in public schools now, I'll probably just give you the 10 commandments of LSU football for the 2024 season. How about that? Okay. I'm not saying I like it. Legitimately. Just saying. Kind of wild and crazy. And we'll do Ask Blake, and at the end we'll go around your SEC. Georgia pulling some things off. We might need to talk about Alabama recruiting. I see a lot of people making fun of them. You might want to hold your horses. So we'll get into all of that. Tyler Townsend. Oh, and we'll go on a recruiting update too. Obviously, that's what the thing with Koki Riley is going to be for sure. Tyler Townsend says, let's go. Blanchard, Louisiana, 318. 3-1, great stand up. Charlie Viator says, hit the like and share in the 337. Abso-freaking-lutely. Stephen Young says, I trust Jay Johnson. Getting transfers from Dayton and Wofford seems riskier than getting them from NC State and Alabama. True. But in the scenario you just gave, you could have said, what about Air Force? I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I understand it. You give Jay a little, the Tommy Tanks. Well, yeah, there's not a Tommy Tanks in the portal, but there are some, a kid from ULM, the kid from Purdue that went in the portal today, he can hit. Oh, and by the way, you got one. The kid from Dayton hit 13 bombs. So we'll talk about that. By the way, look, just labeled Eddie Yeaman the fourth a catcher because that's what he listed himself as in the portal. He didn't put first baseman that he played all last year. He said, I wanted to catch. So I'm like, okay. All right. You would have thought that I was just saying something crazy. Did talk about a veteran catcher. Still think that he could do that if you need him to. We'll see. Gave you some hints, though. Spectrum Wellcare says, any chance we get Purdue player that just in the portal? I don't know. I don't know if Jay's contacted him. I don't know that at this point. Mark Allen says 903 checking in Jefferson, Texas. Good that Texas, the 903 is in here. Good that you're in here with us too, Mark. Very excited for all of you that are in here. Ryan says, I just don't understand why people root for the conference in conference opponent. Excuse me, I'm slipping up here in national championship games, knowing it will potentially be negative effects your team's recruiting. I don't think it affects Jay Johnson. I don't think it's affecting Jay Johnson at all, if we're being honest. I understand it, but I also think it makes for better, just overall baseball makes it for overall better football. It's entertaining, man. Highly entertaining. Highly, highly entertaining. The Golden Boot Pod, Pooh Bear, and, well, he says he's in the 256, originally from the 251. So I'm going to assume this is Pooh Bear checking in tonight. Good to have the 251 here. Stop by Cracker Barrel on the way to Atlanta in Mobile. Sure did. I got to admit, steak and eggs from Cracker Barrel was like $18. The steak actually wasn't bad, and neither were the eggs. I think Baby Jewel and Ben got some pancakes. I think Megan, I don't remember what she got. But just saying, the Mobile Cracker Barrel. Oh, boy. That Wofford pitcher is legit. Yeah, you're talking about Zach Cohen. So, yeah, he is. I do agree with you there. All right, let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share to all those groups on Facebook, share to all of those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you are listening to us on podcast, rate, review, and subscribe. Let's start by our good friends over at betonline.ag, our good friend Tyler Alexander over at LPT Realty, and a good friends over at J&J Exterminating. We got a lot to discuss. Baseball, football, players that I think that position group that might be a lot better. We get to all of that next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah. We're back.
All right. Sorry, I'm glued into this Texas A&M Florida game. You know, which reminds me or makes me think of this. I've seen a lot of you on Twitter today talking about, Tennessee obviously won today against Florida State, which they are going to be in the College World Series finals. Texas A&M and Florida is currently playing, which makes me and reminds me of what a lot of you have asked on Twitter. Which fan base would be more toxic if they won a national championship in college baseball? I mean, if Texas A&M legitimately won, I think it would be the worst thing possibly ever. But that's just me. Tennessee fans are pretty obnoxious. You got to give it to them. They are pretty obnoxious. And I know you don't want either fan base to win. Which fan base would be worse to win a baseball national title, Tennessee or Texas A&M? Put it in the comments right here. Let us know. All right, let's get rolling. I feel like it's A&M, man. I legitimately do. Legitimately feel that, like, I don't want Texas A&M to win it. I'd rather Florida beat them twice and go on and win the whole damn thing. I can deal with Florida fans, especially in baseball, because there aren't many. There aren't many. Would stink because Kevin O'Sullivan, I mean, look, man, has done a very, very, very good job over there. But I feel that it would be A&M. I don't think we would stop hearing about this team. Oh, it's the best team of all time. Yeah, you're not beating Paul Skeens. You're not beating 2023 LSU, sweetheart. Just saying. Just saying it. All right. Listen, we're going to talk a lot of baseball. Now, LSU clearly got a commit today from Eddie Yeaman from Dayton. Look, a kid that is going to come in here that has been a big bat now. Year one hit 170 or below 180. In his freshman year, did catch some games. Got a lot bigger, though. Looks like the kid hit the weight room from one year to another. Goes into the weight room. Now, for whatever reason, when he entered the portal, he listed himself as a catcher. It's a position he played. All last year, he was at first. I don't know what Jay's going to do with him, but a kid that's a bigger kid reminds me somewhat at times like maybe some guys that you saw in the Pac-12 big catch or guys that are big catchers move the first because they can hit a lot. Nevertheless, the kid's got a really, really good swing to him. If he's going to play first, if he's going to catch. But there was a potential, and some people that I talked to today said that a potential he could play third if he gets some reps there. So many different things that can happen with your commitment today from Eddie Yeaman. Now, I look at Eddie, okay, and ask myself a couple of questions. Number one, and it's the questions that I know that all of you had. So let's address them. We'll talk about this more at length with Koki Riley joins us in just a minute. But in case you missed it, LSU did get a very, very big commitment today in Eddie Yeaman. I'm trying to pull it up here, but hit 342 last season with 13 home runs, 54 RBIs. I did see on his glove that he posted on his catcher's mitt. It's got Exodus 2015 on it that says, "Thou shalt not steal." He's a catcher. Pretty witty. I already love that. Love the swag that the kid has. What I was told is that Jay had been seeing him throughout the summer. I'm assuming Jay was recruiting him pretty hard when they were in the Cape. Over this week, he's caught 2 games, by the way, in the Cape this summer. So a guy that was at first, played first all last year, has already been in the Cape and has caught 2 games. So I do wonder what Jay sees there. I don't know. What I do know is that Jay's actively watching him. Kid commits, and he's catching in one of those games, if I'm not mistaken. Now, he's caught 2 in the Cape so far, but yeah. It's a big question mark. What is he going to be? Is he going to be at first? You got Luis Hernandez there. The ultimate thing here is, man, when you get this type of talent, you can find and plug and play pieces when you have someone that's going to give you this type of production. Guys, I don't care what conference you're in. Look, Dayton was in a mid-major program, and the kid hit 342. Guys, Dayton also had midweek games, I remember, and if I'm not mistaken, faced, I think was the opening weekend against Tennessee a couple of years ago. It's not like they weren't out there testing themselves, because they were. This kid hit 342 in his entire season this year after not catching. You know he can play first. The question is, could he play the hot corner? Could he play third? I don't know. I think that you're getting as much talent as you can and accumulating as much as you can, and you have some pieces, say, what are we going to do here? What we're going to do there? And I'm sure Jay will give us some form of idea the way that he's structuring it. But we talked last night, hey, man, I think you might go after an experienced catcher. This wasn't necessarily all the experience that I thought that you would get. Maybe they continue to go that route too and get somebody else. Maybe Jay, and I know Jay probably has that plan, but you have 2 guys that have called before in Luis Hernandez and Eddie Yeaman that if worst came to worst, you could put him in. He's giving himself options. And I think that that's the biggest thing here, is that Jay is giving himself options. So we'll go down the entire recruiting list with Koki in about 10 minutes or so here. So I'm going to wait to talk to him about it. I think it's going to be a very good conversation when we do that. But wanted to acknowledge and lead the show off, obviously, with LSU getting another big commitment here in Eddie Yeaman the 4th. I love the name. by the way. Eddie Yeaman IV. Dude just sounds like a baseball player. Just sounds like he comes from a long lineage of great baseball players. The name is fantastic. I know with a last name like Yeaman that they say Louisiana's going to have fun with that. Shirts are going to be made with this kid probably. Watch, I'm telling you. Shirts are going to be made of this kid. You know, when the Bayou gets cooking with names, man, legends are born. I hope this kid can be that. I really do. I don't know if he will or if he won't. I hope this kid does because I think it'd be very fun. All right. So let me transition very quickly. Let me go on a little bit of a rant. We'll talk a little bit of football here too. And then we'll go baseball when Koki joins us. So last night I talked about a position group that I thought we were overlooking and that might have just as many question marks that we don't know going into the season what we really have there. I think we know that we have some talent. What can Ashton Stamps do in year two? You know, you have some high school guys that are coming in. PJ Woodard started the spring game. Does that matricularize, as they say, into him being the opening day starter? I don't know. We got to find out. I do think that, and we talked about this, that there were two position groups that are really three position groups, but mainly the two that I focused on yesterday, linebacker and safety. I want to go to linebacker here tonight because I do think that you have positioned yourself in a really good place at that position with a lot of young talent and a lot of dudes that can play. You know, some would say that the linebacker unit played very below par last year. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. What I believe the case is that they were having to do too much. And I don't think people completely understand that. It didn't get through to them. What we saw in Damone Clark so many years ago with Blake Baker, I think is, well, can Blake Baker do that again? I don't think that that's necessarily fair because Damone Clark was one of the best linebackers in the country. If not for a neck issue, which he did go in the second round, dude would have been a first-round pick. So I don't know about making a guy like Greg Penn into that. I do think that he can be very solid. Now, I told you last night that Greg Penn is a guy that if you ask me, hey, Blake, who is a guy that is coming out of nowhere? It was Greg Penn. Now, let me explain. I think that you're going to have more attack to the football. Don't read this key, this key, this key. Go after the ball. Go after the ball carrier. Now, there's going to be keys and things that you have to read. But if you remember Damone Clark and you remember that season, what was he really known for? Dude was just all over the place making tackles. See ball, get ball. And it worked. That's actually exactly how Missouri was last year that I don't think people have identified on. And I do think that at the end of the year, yes, Greg Penn had some bad tackles. He had some missed tackles. I thought down the stretch of the season, if you go back and look at all the games and him leading the team in tackles, you know, having a sack against A&M to end it, having a really solid, not great, but solid game against Wisconsin, can Blake make him better and make him better quickly? You know, we forget about Micah Baskerville too. I mean, a lot of people thought that throughout the season that he was getting better. I ultimately will say this. With Harold Perkins, the Weeks brothers, and in the middle, Greg Penn. With just those three guys, the athleticism is there. Now, I do ask the question, does a guy like Tylen Singleton come in, you know, be a guy that really shows up and does some stuff? The Weeks brothers, what do? How do you function them in? I don't think that we've seen anything from Blake Baker yet. When you have a room that's that athletic, don't fumble the bag and just do something that is going to make them think. Let these athletes go play. Let them play in space. see ball, get ball. There's a lot of things that you look at Georgia and you're like, man, why does their linebacker play so good? You want to know why their linebacker play is so freaking good? Go watch them defensively. They are going to be in your face in the running game all night long. It's how Nick was doing it. It's basically how LSU had done it for such a long time. Think of the dudes that have come out of that position group. Not just of late either. A lot of them coming out of nowhere and being really good. So I do ask the question, how can those guys be better when they're such really good athletes? I think that position group is going to pick it up a lot, actually, from what we saw last season. The issue I ask is, look, Damone Clark always did show the willingness to get his nose in there and tackle. I do ask the question if tackling will be an issue. It can't be. Like, if there's one thing that this linebacker unit just across the board has to be better at, is getting dudes to the ground. Like, the reads that they made last year, there were a lot of times that they made a lot of good reads and would miss tackles, take poor angles, or just the tackle being broken. I talked to somebody today. They were like, I brought up Greg Penn to him, and we were having a conversation. And they were like, well, first play of the game, Josh Williams broke a tackle from Greg Penn. I'm like, yeah, but the other side of that is he's trying to make a tackle at the line of scrimmage, which tells me that he's making the right read. Got to get better there, though. Making the right reads doesn't mean shit when you can't get the guy to the ground. What's interesting, we haven't talked a lot about Harold Perkins, and now that we're getting so close to the season, my question starts becoming, can we start getting him back to the quarterback? Can you get him in very good situations where you get him in space and he doesn't have to rush the passer? Can you get Deshaun Womack? Can you get Braden Swinson on the edge and find some true pressure on the edge? At least showing the pressure and sending the pressure. Guys, I got to tell you, defenses that sit on their heels all night long are legitimately not working in today's college football. It's what you were last year. Guys, Michigan, Georgia, I'm thinking of some really good defense. Well, you know what? Even to an extent, a team that you see in week one, the defensive coordinator, UCLA last year with that front seven. They were in your face all night long. Now, some of them had the corner play, some of them did not. And DB is a big issue. It is a massive issue. I just wouldn't be surprised if you're not more aggressive all over the board. I don't like a DC that's not aggressive. I understand you don't want to get burned, but you can run zone from that. You can do a lot of different things in sending the pressure and how you send the pressure. When you overload a side, something that we in a deep dive have not gotten into. You go watch Missouri and you look what they did a season ago, even versus LSU. Go watch the film. When they're sending pressure at Jaden, they are overloading a side for the rush, sending another DN out in coverage or a linebacker out in coverage to fill the void. I think we're scratching the surface with Blake Baker, and I will say if there is a change in philosophy, if Blake Baker is not running the stuff that he was doing at Missouri, and you see a lot of the same stuff that we saw last year with Matt House, that's a Brian Kelly thing. I don't think Brian Kelly is going to meddle whatsoever. I think this is going to be all Blake Baker because Brian Kelly doesn't like to necessarily meddle defensively. I just think you see a lot of pressure, overload pressure, which gives me the thought, and while we talk about that linebacking core, are they going to take that next step? Now, I'm taking a very big a shot in the dark here, some would say. I don't feel that I am. I like Greg Penn as a potential breakout player. He's got a lot he's got to work on, tackling being a big thing. hoping good for Greg Penn. All right, let's get to it. I know that some of you are mad that I didn't get to your comments. I'm sorry. We got to get to Koki Riley. Let me read this super chat very quickly. Michael Moore says Tennessee would absolutely be worse. Talking about the two teams if they won. I picked Texas A&M, Tennessee. Which fan base would be worse? Michael says Tennessee, especially since that would mean they would break the #1 curse. Yeah. I just don't. I feel like A&M fans would be worse if they won a national title. Now I look at the tube right here. Florida not off to a great start, man. Just not. All right. Let's get to a quick break. We talk about LSU baseball. We recap it with Koki. We talk about the portal. Got a lot of things we got to talk about with him. First time on. Really excited to have him. Let's get to him. Let's get to a quick break. We're back next. We're back next. Oh, it froze. Okay. We'll just wait for it not to freeze. Interns. All right. Yeah, play it.
By the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Whether you've been injured in an accident, you're preparing for a future with your estate planning, you're getting ready to close in on a real estate deal, or you're about to welcome a new addition through adoption into your family, or you're facing criminal charges, you need very experienced attorneys, and that is what the Drake Williams Law Firm will be able to do for you in navigating the legal system. The door to their cozy office in historic downtown Ponchatoula has been open since 1981. They have helped thousands and thousands of Louisiana families and individuals win cases, close on real estate deals, and regain that peace of mind. Their lawyers over at the Drake Williams Law Firm, Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, are very determined, compassionate, and dedicated to their craft. It's the Drake Williams Law Firm, drakewilliamslawfirm.com. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino at AYS sent you on by.
Louisiana is unique. The food, the festivals, even the bugs. No, not mud bugs. Unwanted bugs like these. The ones you don't want crawling in your home or business. Trust the Shield from J&J Exterminating. We've been protecting Louisiana homes for over 50 years, earning the trust of our clients because we deliver what we promise. Protect your home from pests. Get the Shield from J&J Exterminating.
J&J Exterminating. Yeah.
All right. Koki Riley joins us from The Advocate. Koki, good evening, good sir. How are you?
Nice to see you. How's it going?
Going good. You know, not as good as that Jay Johnson's doing in the portal, though. I will say that, but who would be? Koki, I appreciate you joining us. A lot of big news coming out of LSU baseball. They got some big news today with Eddie Yeaman. I guess let's start off with him. Your thoughts on Eddie joining this team?
Yeah, I've got to say it's a pretty big addition in terms of, another power bat, another bat that has quite a bit of versatility, has experience at catcher, experience in the outfield, mostly played first base at Dayton. It is kind of interesting that they already got Luis Hernandez. They already have Trevor Schmidt. Jared Jones still might be on this team. So that's a lot of primary first basemen, I should say, even though, three of those guys that I mentioned, heck, all four of them have experience playing other positions. So I think versatility is sort of the key here. And Yeaman only played 2 games at catcher collegiately, at least, but he has 22 games in right field. So they could play him in a corner if they needed him to. And also they have an open DH spot too, because I know Hayden Trubisky. So I imagine one of those guys plays DH, especially if Jared Jones comes back.
Any potential thought of him moving to third?
Yeah, that's it. I understand exactly why you're asking that question, because they need a third baseman. They don't have a pure third baseman right now on this team, especially with Tommy White out the door. And in terms of incoming freshmen, it's really just Cale. It's really just Cale Fountain as a guy who can definitely play there. I mean, Daniel Arambula, the kid from California, he's another pure third baseman. But again, both those guys are true freshmen. And Fountain might not even come to school. There's a chance that someone's really enticed with his power and picks him. So they're really light at third base at the moment, unless they're really penciling in Tanner Reeves at that spot. But he's kind of a do-everything kind of guy who can play apparently 6 different positions. So it's, six or seven different positions. So yeah, I mean they're in a bit of a hole right now at third base, and I mean I haven't seen enough from any of these guys. I mean they could try to convert one of them into a third baseman, but I think at the end of the day, I think they'd be better off with getting someone who is a pure third baseman to play third base.
So you bring up Luis Hernandez in there too, but just to run through them, we'll talk about just this class in general. Luis Hernandez could possibly go in draft. I don't know if that's going to likely happen. We'll see.
Mhm.
But Chris Stansfield also from Auburn, Zach Cohen, Luke Hayden, Devin Sheeran, and Chandler Dorsey are the ones that have transferred in. Any of those guys that you really like a lot, and why do you think that the transition might be good for one of these guys if you're just looking at them all?
Yeah, I think Cowan just feels like a starter to me because of how many polished pitches he has, just how polished he is as a pitcher in general. I mean, the 110 innings this past season. He's not going to be a big stuff, big strikeout guy. He's going to be more of you probably expect him more be I'm saying like an innings eater. That's a bit of a that's a bit of a red mark, I guess. But I still view him as someone who can fill into a rotation spot if you need him to. Really can feel for his changeup, can locate his pitches really well. And I think LSU fans are pretty familiar with him just because I think everyone kind of expected him to start against LSU in the regional when he was at Wofford. So, but the name I think that really sort of jumps out to me the most, at least from the pitching side, is Devin Sheeran. And he's just a fascinating case because for 4.7 ERA guy at Mount St. Mary's doesn't really seem like an LSU guy, right? But I mean, over 100 strikeouts and 70 some odd innings. He's 6'5". I think he said on Moscona's show that he's actually more like 6'6", 6'7", and he's 245 pounds. He's a big kid, and his fastball gets up to 98 miles an hour, and he's a really good slider. And that is just a very fun piece to have when you already have a couple other, talented right-handed arms on your roster at the moment. And I think in terms of right-handed pitching, they're in a pretty good spot right now, and just in terms of like depth and guys with potential. Even Chandler Dorsey, someone who can get up to 95. They had a pretty good, and he had pretty good numbers in South Florida this year. Then you have Jay New coming back. Then you have Jay Shores coming back, and all of a sudden your right-handed pitching is looking pretty strong, even if you don't include some of the guys who may or may not be back, like Fidel Ulloa, for example. It's really the left-handed pitching that I'm keeping an eye out for, and how do they sort of bolster that, add more depth to that, because there's really only two guys who were slated to come back from last season's team, and they're adding Connor Ware, who's a JUCO guy. You don't really necessarily know what you're going to get from him. Talented arm, but he's had injury issues, so they're just really light with left-handed pitching, and I'm just like really curious to see how they fix that.
Yeah, some would say go to get the ECU kid Root, but I hear that he's taking a visit to Auburn. But I mean, he would be a big time addition. Koki, I look at him. I think Sheeran is the most interesting to me in a lot of ways because you're talking about, like you said, like we have one of our priests that are in here, Father Abear. He's like, hey, I did my seminary at Mount St. Mary, and he's like, Blake, there wasn't kids throwing 88 at Mount St. Mary when I was there. This kid's throwing 98. He's got a nasty slider. And I think that he's like when you see a kid that's got tools, but maybe that didn't have the refinement, I think is an awesome deal. I'm very interested to see how he puts it together. Let me ask you about Chris Stansfield, because, look, we've seen someone in the SEC, I don't want to say struggled. I don't think Stansfield struggled, but a guy hitting below 300 Stansfield feels very Michael Braswell-ish to me.
Yeah,
am I wrong in saying that? And then secondly, how do you like Stansfield being added to this team?
It seems like he, in a way, is the Paxton Kling replacement, but is also with many shades of Michael Braswell because, SEC guy, needs to work on his hit tool, has defensive value, positional value, because he plays up the middle, right? In this case, it's center field.
Right.
I think he played every game in center field, or every game but one in center field this past year for Auburn. But again, he needs to work on this. He needs to work on, generating more power as a hitter, which is exactly what we talked about with Michael Braswell. Even though Braswell didn't become like a big home run hitter this past season, he hit a lot of doubles and he drove the ball a lot better. And I think
doubt.
that's something that Stanfield's going to have to work on. And, Jay Johnson's the right guy to sort of try to unlock that. And he's a veteran guy, so with some tools. So you figure that he can open up to what Jay wants from him. The one thing with Stanfield to keep an eye out for is that he's also draft eligible. So there's not 100. It's not 100%. We're not 100% sure if he's going to be on this team this upcoming year. Sometimes you just never know about these things, right? I think everyone thought. I mean, they even announced that Carter Young was going to be on the team 2 years ago, and the Orioles turned around. I think they lost their second or third round pick because they couldn't agree.
Yeah.
And they gave him a boatload of money, and then he never came. And the school announced it and everything. Jack Pineda was drafted in the 11th round.
Trust me, I remember. Go look at that Young tweet and look at the fans like 10 minutes giving your boy ripping. I'm like, the Oilers literally just announced it. What do you want me to do? I mean,
yeah.
Like, hey man, I'm just telling you what they just announced. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It was the crazy Carter Young situation. And Jack Pineda got picked in the 11th round by the Royals. And I mean, Dylan T-Break, people were very excited about him. And then the Mets took him in the 8th round. And I think Paul Gervais even announced he was going to come back. And then the Mets ended up taking him. And so like it's never over until it's over with these things. So that's why I like to put in that he is draft eligible. I like to put that at least on the table. But I think there's a greater chance that he gets drafted than Luis Hernandez. At least that's what it seems like at the moment. But again, we'll see though. I think it would be a nice addition for them. And I think their outfield right now, they got plenty of depth there. Like,
somebody that's caught my eye too, that not from me, like just like saying, hey man, this kid's got insane numbers where he was at. But I see a lot of people that cover college baseball nationally talking about Luke Hayden being in their top 10 dudes in the portal. So Baseball America, I think, published like 3 of the top 10 from the portal or something, whatever it was. And I'm asking, like, if Luke Hayden, who also is draft eligible, does come here, let's just say you do get back a Griffin Herring. God forbid he doesn't get drafted. Who knows? Chase Shore's return, Newt, you have Cohen, and then you have a potential for Luke Hayden if he doesn't want to go. Koki, I'm asking you a very tough question. Do you have your starting rotation already in them? Is that what's going to be it, or did they go after another big-name guy that could start?
I think if Griffin Herring comes back, I think they have the rotation. Even if Griffin Herring doesn't come back, you could argue that they already have the rotation at least. So I think they're in a pretty decent spot with the rotation. But again, they don't have a lot of left-handed options. Those are all right-handed guys except for Herring that you just mentioned. And Kate Anderson, I guess, could be an option as well. So you have a lot of potential options. And I think Cowan is pretty close to being just a option, not just a potential option. And I would say the same thing with Shores, even though, again, Shores has only pitched, 18 innings in his college career. It's kind of a gauge jump situation. But instead, we've actually seen the guy, and he's 100 in the right side with a, really good breaking ball. So, and he was the best pitcher, and he was the best pitcher in Texas coming out of high school. So we know what he can do. We've seen it. He was one of the best relievers on the team that won the national championship. And then he just got hurt. So I have high expectations for him. I think Newt is someone to at least keep an eye out for as well, just because he was the best pitcher in Texas coming out of high school, as 95 to 96 with movement. And I don't know. I just feel like if he can, stay healthy and put something together, then maybe they have something there too. So it's, you want to create as many potential options as possible, because not all these guys are going to work. That's just how baseball works. That's just how small sample size baseball works, right? We're not playing 162 games, we're playing 60. So you just want to, have as many dart throws and many good dart throws as possible, as many Devin Sheerans. And that's why that's a smart addition, because if he doesn't work out, it's okay. But if he does work out, then you have a potential starter right there. And it's a guy he came out of nowhere from Mount St. Mary's, So I think they have plenty of dart throws in terms of talented right-handed pitchers at the very least. Now I think they just need more depth with the left-handed side.
Last portal question. What else do you think they're going to go after? If you had to put all your chips in, what else would Jay go after in the portal if he continues, which I think he is, but if he continues, what else do you think he's going after? Oh,
I think, yeah. So I mentioned left-handed pitching. I think we talked about third base a good bit, even though I think Cale Fountain is a pretty talented kid and one of the best Nebraska prospects we've seen in a while. But you need a veteran option there. It doesn't have to be Tommy White, or, you know what I mean, the next Tommy White or the next Jacob Berry, but it's got to be somebody.
your next
At least
center
that's
fielder
what I
has
think.
to be Dylan Cruz. Just ask Paxton Klein.
And especially with adding Curiel, now that Curiel, we know he's coming to school, I feel even better about the outfield right now. And of course, they have Ashton Larson coming back and potentially Jake Brown. And they could turn Jake Brown back into a pitcher, and maybe that helps fix your left-handed pitching problem. But anyway, I think the last position I think we have to mention is catcher in terms of the portal. With Brady Neal now in the portal, which did surprise me a decent bit, I think that you really only have Blaze Priester right now as the only veteran guy, and he might be the only guy, period, as a full-time catcher at least. They have a bunch of now they have 4 guys who have at least played catcher, which is weird. But heck, versatility, right? Potentially 4 if Jared Jones comes back.
You think they still need somebody that can go back there and just catch?
Yeah, I think they just need a veteran, because you don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Bede in the draft. I think I lean more towards him coming to school, and I think it would be really nice if he came to school. But from the reports that I at least read, he seems like a pretty raw player. Big power, big arm, but needs to, refine some things. And I think Jay Johnson's a good guy to refine those things, but that's not going to happen overnight in one season. So I think, do you really want to be leaning on a JUCO catcher? Granted, he was a JUCO All-American, but still a JUCO catcher as your everyday guy like that. That's just asking him a lot. And I think they do need probably one more veteran out of the transfer portal, preferably someone from a Power 5 school.
Do you think they land any of these big guys at the top, like Kylan or Root or anything like that? Because I mean, look, Koki, the thing has been, it's been pretty quiet on those guys up top.
Yeah, it has been very quiet with those guys at top. I think there was a report that Root visited LSU at one point. I think he makes a lot of sense because of the left-handed pitching thing that I was talking about. But it is a little bit surprising that he still hasn't really picked
and he's at Auburn today. Like, the kid's taking more visits than any football recruit in the history of football. I mean, like, the dude's been like 7 places in 2 weeks.
Well, Auburn's been very active in the portal, if you haven't noticed.
Right, they have.
Which I understand why, because of how poor of a season they just had, and the fact that they've had some pretty good ones before this past year.
Right.
So it would Killen. We'll see. I mean, they have Michael Braswell, and my guess is he'll come back. So I don't know if they want to like supplant him, and I guess they could add Killen and move one of them to third base, but I don't know if they're necessarily super open to that. And like, although Braswell has his faults defensively, I think offensively he was good enough this season to the point where you want him back. I think at the end of last season really kind of convinced me that, okay, they should really try to retain this guy, because you need veteran bats. You need, your Gavin Dugas, your Cade Veloso, and he can be that sort of version of a guy for you if he comes back for another season.
You know what's interesting too, Koki? I don't know if you fielded this question, but to your point about experience, I see a lot of people talking about, well, a lot of these kids are from smaller schools, and I'm like, turn the football portal thing off for just a minute. This is baseball. That's number one. But number two, like Texas A&M, the guy that just struck out, I think it was Shot. He was in the Ivy League last year. The Ivy League. Okay, and he's hitting above 300, and Texas A&M might go to a College World Series. By the way, they got 3 dudes from the Ivy League. So you got to turn your mind off too. My ultimate question becomes, when you're bringing that many guys in, there is the question, though, do they hit this type of pitching? I guess, what have we seen more from the baseball portal, in your opinion, than anywhere else?
In terms of, like,
well, I just feel like all these dudes for mid-majors are coming out of nowhere, and I'm like, who the hell is this kid? I mean, we had the number 1 dude that did it in Air Force. I mean, in Skeens. But, Koki, these dudes are coming from the Ivy League. I mean, you got 3 dudes that are hitting above. Now, I'm not saying the Braden Montgomerys of the world you don't need, but the Ivy League. I mean,
Yeah.
like this is insane that these kids are coming from everywhere and getting to places like LSU and A&M.
Yeah. You're right. And that's just, I look at it as the same way that, when you add an LOB free agent or you add an NBA free agent, you don't know for sure if the guy's going to work, but you bet on the traits, you see how the guy fits into your system, and then you hope it works, and
Right.
I think Jay Johnson has had a pretty decent success rate overall. Like, not everything has worked. Like, Mac Bingham wasn't necessarily lighting the world on fire this past season.
But how many more did he hit on too? Like, I mean, he missed one.
That's what I mean. Like,
right.
So I'm not saying it's all worked, but I think for the most part it has worked for them. They haven't, like, everyone's talked about how LSU's team is built out of the portal. That really hasn't been true, because they added 6 or 7 guys last year. They added like 4 or 5 the year before. Like, they're not building the ship out of this. It's been the finishing touches. I think this year is a little bit different with that, though, because they've added 7 guys and they're probably going to add a couple more. It just when you just look at the roster, and they've added 5 JUCO guys, which is way more than they've had in years past, when they've really only added 2 or 3 at most. Last year they added 1, and that was Fidel. So I think things have changed a little bit this offseason. Part of it's because of the guys that have entered the transfer portal. I mean, in fact, they had 11 guys into the portal this year. There's only 1 or 2 last year, period. And that's what happens when you win the national championship, I guess. Yeah, like, things have changed for them a little bit in terms of their roster building and how they have to build their roster. But it's going to be really interesting to see how things work out, because if they're going to add more transfer portal guys, obviously they're going to be a more veteran team. And I think a lot of the season people were like, they're struggling because they're too young, or they don't have enough experience playing together, or any of those sort of things. So when you're adding portal guys, you're checking off some of those question marks, but at the same time, there's still other question marks that pop up, like, can the guy hit SEC pitching, for example, or can the guy pitch against SEC competition, and it's just really hard to tell unless you're getting a superstar level sort of commit like Tommy White, when
right.
the guy's gonna hit. So that's the equivalent of signing Kevin Durant for agency, so like, there really I don't think there's really a guy like that this year, at least from what I can tell. But like Sheeran, for example, like, I mentioned him because he's a good bat, right? He goes 98, really good slider, a big body. Like, no matter, like, yes, he's not playing at a great level of competition, and the numbers aren't quite as good as you want them to be. But in terms of betting on guys, that's the sort of guy you want to bet on. You want to bet on the traits, right? Because the traits translate no matter what level of competition he's playing. So I for the most part, I like their strategy in the transfer portal so far. It's been necessary in terms of filling the holes that they've needed to fill. Granted, you probably didn't want to have to be as aggressive as they have been this offseason, because you wanted to bring more guys like Brady Neal and Paxton Klink back. But at the same time, you're dealt with the cards that you get, and I think they've added some pretty interesting pieces.
2 former LSU head coaches are back in the news. Which one do you want to start with, Paul Mainieri or Les Miles? Let's go to Paul. I guess Paul Mainieri, obviously going to South Carolina. Your instant reaction to him going there, taking Terry Rooney with him?
After talking with him and doing the story with him right after it was officially announced, not surprised. When you talk to him, he just felt like he said this pretty openly. He felt like he was someone who wasn't satisfied with being retired, and he just needed to get his body right and make sure it was right for him to get back into the game again. And it seems like he has, after a couple more surgeries, after now he's playing golf without any pain, stuff like that. That's critical and important for him to end up getting back into coaching. And it seems like he's a lot healthier. Again, he's always had the energy. He's just a high energy guy in general. And really it was just a matter of would the right opportunity pop up, and the South Carolina opportunity is a pretty darn good opportunity, right? I mean, that's a program that the last program that went back-to-back national championships, and really cares about baseball, obviously. So I think that, for him, it was almost a no-brainer. And when you look at it through that lens, it shouldn't be surprising, even if the news initially was quite surprising, because it's, oh wow. I think it's more surprising from the South Carolina side than it is from the LSU side, but from the Pulmonary side, I should say. But yeah, it's either way, it is one of the most interesting things that have happened this offseason.
Last thing for you, Les Miles back in the news. I know that there's been a lot around this. People either think he should be in the Hall of Fame and get back his vacated wins, or they don't. I don't feel like there's much middle ground in the middle of any of this. Maybe there is. I don't know. I guess your thoughts of Les Miles trying to or suing LSU to get his wins back.
First of all, I didn't know you could sue someone to get wins back. Usually when you sue someone, it's for money. It's not for, wins that were a part of, the 80 some on over 100 people contributed to over years and years,
Right.
So I think in that sense, it was just a very strange, thing that popped up on the news. And I think that, yeah, again, it was just weird. It's just a very strange situation. And I mean, I wasn't here covering Les Miles, but from my understanding, that's someone who had a lot of pride and just like the success that he had here at LSU, and the fact that he's fighting back for it shouldn't be a surprise to most people. But how he's fighting back for it is definitely interesting, to say the least. Now I understand how he can sue, because I mean, he's not suing for the wins technically. He's suing for the fact that they didn't give him due process to vacate the wins in the first place. At least that's from my understanding.
And I think it's a critical point there, that he's suing for due process. I mean, it's not, I mean, Koki, you're talking about due process being like, hey, you got to have due process for an arrest. And so he didn't get what he feels day in court for those wins. I mean, you're right about the suing of the money, but I just asked the question, like, does he not have a case? And are vacated wins dumb? Like, let people decide if he's going to get in, give him the wins. I mean, I get the level 1 violation, Vidal Alexander, but my whole thing about all this has been, well, you can't complain about Will Wade and, well, everything he was doing is legal now. Well, so is Les Miles' offense on the level 1 allegation.
That's true. It's if you're doing a legal thing at the time, it's still illegal, even if it becomes legal later.
That's what Al Capone
said. Part of that.
Yeah. I mean, prohibition. I mean.
Yeah. Even if it's wrong, but anyway, that's kind of beside the point.
Correct.
Correct. I guess with this situation in particular, are those his, but the fact, I just think it's weird that he's acting like those are my wins when, again,
that's a good point.
Playing quarterback, he's not playing quarterback, offensive line, wide receiver, and defense at the same time while coaching, so in vacated wins, I think in general are kind of dumb, because it's like, we saw the games, they happened, they're on YouTube, you can't just wave them away. The Reggie Bush thing too, right? So,
well, and that's the kind of point that I was getting to. That's a good point about Reggie Bush. Hey man, can we remember history? And then there comes a part for me, Koki. I just went and looked the other day when he sued. I was like, all right, well, number one, is he a Hall of Famer? Is a big question. But number two, who's in there as coaches? And Joe Paterno wasn't kicked out of the Hall of Fame after all of that stuff. I mean, he's got the same number of national titles as Mac Brown. So, I mean, there's a lot of coaches that won a national title that are in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I'm like, I mean, give Mike Leach, his day, and then give Les Miles a chance. That's all I'm saying. Just leave him alone. Let him go out in the sunset. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, with Hall of Fames, I think it's weird to put I'm just saying this generally. I'm not saying this as a pro Les Miles take or anything like that. I just think in general, it's weird to say all right, he has 299 wins, not 300, so we can't put him in. Or
you know what it is? You ever seen the movie Mr. 3000 with Bernie Mac?
I haven't.
Okay. You need to go watch Mr. 3000. He technically named after getting 3,000 hits. His name's Mr. 3000. and he had like 287. So you had to go back and get them to get Mr. 3000, right? And the Brewers sucked or whatever. I mean, it's like, come on, man. I mean, come on. Give it to him. I mean, history's history. All right, Koki Riley from The Advocate, man, I really appreciate it. Your first time here. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you so much. I know everybody knows, but just in case, where can they find all your work and everything you're doing?
Yeah, you can find me at theadvocate.com and then NOLA.com. Obviously, the New Orleans Times-Picayune, the newspaper in New Orleans, and then The Advocate here in Baton Rouge. So you can find me there, and you can find me on X, Twitter, whatever the heck you call it, at Koki Riley. So
do you still say tweet? Like I say, I tweeted the other day. Do you say you reposted?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
No.
I feel like a crazy person because everybody's like, "Hey, this is X," and I'm like, "Hey, man, I saw it on Twitter. You know, I'm not calling it X. Call it whatever you want."
Yeah, I refuse to. I refuse to, buy into that. I'm sorry.
Me too. All right, Koki Riley, thank you so much, bud. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's Koki Riley from The Advocate. Fantastic. I mean, very insightful. I thought he was really good. Really, really, really good. All right. Around your SEC, very quickly before we get out of here, I got to make this statement. I've seen a lot of people, for what it's worth, like maybe not a lot of people, but I've seen the narrative out there that Alabama is not recruiting well. And I'm not going to go down this whole rabbit hole why I think that they are, because they are the number 3 class in the country, which they have not been bad at recruiting, which was a big question that I had about Kalen DeBoer. What I do say is, don't poke a bear. Okay, I get Saban's not there, but they're recruiting. I get that it's June. They got to finish. And how does the season do it? I legitimately get all of that. But come on. I mean, don't point the finger at them when we might have some of our own issues. You just went through your own recruiting issue, personally, professionally, and as a team. All of it. So just throwing it out there, leave them alone. Let's worry about us. Let's stop worrying about them and start worrying about us. Because if you don't, then you start having bigger issues. Much, much bigger issues. And then people start pointing and laughing at you when you can't do what it is that you need to get done. One thing on Alabama I will say, okay, I don't know if they'll get back clearly to the level that they were with Nick. I don't think that they can. I don't. I do ask the question, though, how good will they be? I think everybody has written them off. DeBoer coming to the SEC. Dude's a really good offensive coach, man. Really, really, really good offensive coach. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good one. Let's go watch the College World Series. Peace.